Namaskar and welcome to another engaging conversation on Khul Ke. Khul Ke is India's own social media platform made from India, made for India, but for the world. Most social media platforms are either American or Chinese. This is an Atmanirbhar platform. And we are in a discussion where we are going to talk about towards a new India. And in this new India, there is one thing which will play an important role, which is computer chips and semiconductors. On this conversation, I have with me Dr. Ajai Chowdhry. Many of the younger people in the audience may not have used the first generation computers which came out in India. But people like me who have worked from the first generation computers have worked on systems which were hardwired and developed by Dr. Chowdhry. He is one of the founders of HCL, Hindustan Computers Limited, now known as HCL, more than a $50 billion company. And Dr. Chowdhry believes that India should be Atmanirbhar, especially in the area of semiconductors, computer chips, and the ecosystem around it. Let me remind people that there was a time when India was a leader in this area. We had our own semiconductor fab, but there was a fire in the then Chandigarh facility and we lost out. And since then, cheaper imports have kind of taken over. But Dr. Ajay Chowdhry is trying to ensure that we get an ecosystem in place. The topic of our discussion today is, are Chinese computer chips safe for India? Most of our mobile phones and smartphones, everything we use has chips which are of Chinese origin. Should Pallav worry? Maybe Dr. Chaudhary does not need to worry because he works on a system which is different. But I work on an Android system and I need to worry. Many of us work on Android systems. So, should we be worried about using Chinese computer chips? Uh, Thanks a lot, Dr. Chaudhary. You are a busy man for finding time for Khul Ke, which should be something very close to your heart because this is truly an Atmanirbhar effort.
That's wonderful. Good to know that it's totally an Indian product created by Indians for India for the world. So I'm very happy to be part of this discussion.
Uh, Dr. Ajay, it is said that in this 21st century, chips and semiconductors are the new oil. Do you subscribe to that idea and thought?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, many years ago, I had also written in a note for the government that at some stage, the import of electronics in India will exceed the import of oil. And we are nearly there. It happens all the time until the current price increase of oil that's happened. But pretty much that's the situation where our import bills are very high. And despite the fact that last year we tried to talk about a better balance of trade with China, our import bill from China increased last year. So I think that is really very difficult situation for India. That at one end we are fighting the Chinese on the border, and at the other end we are importing more.
Uh, these imports are only going to become larger till we have something going. We will talk about that as we go along. For our audience, and this is not a question to you, Dr. Ajay, this is a question for the audience because there is an ongoing quiz in the chat box. And the question for the audience are, what are most computer chips made of? There are many ways computer chips can be made, but one of the materials is the most common one. and I would look forward to answers. And there is a panel which will look after the answers. And finally, there are some winners and there are some awards to be given, and there's a reward. Dr. Ajay, if silicon chips and semiconductors are the new oil, why are we so dependent on imports?
You see, for many, many years, India has been into this debate whether we should make our own semiconductors or not. And I started writing about it in the late 90s, where I said, if as a large country we remain dependent on other countries for semiconductors, we are asking for trouble. And unfortunately, over the years, different governments looked at it, and there were so many global voices also saying, why does India have to make its own semiconductors? And everybody used to say, we are a great fabless country. We design a lot in India. We do a lot of fabless work. Why do we have to make things here? But suddenly, the last 2-3 years are showing the reason for doing it. And the reason for doing it is very straight and simple. The reason is that we just can't be dependent on one country for supply of everything. And therefore, the whole world is now starting to look at more resilient supply chain. And they want to be not dependent on one supplier. Everybody wants to have multiple suppliers. And therefore, India can be in a great position to occupy that second space instead of China. And I think that is where the opportunity lies, that we need to design to manufacture products here. We need to design our semiconductors, and we need to manufacture them. And we don't need to go to the latest technology in semiconductors. We need to get to the technology for which our demand is high.
And where is that demand? Now, for the lay audience, can you explain? Like it was said earlier, the bamboo और बांस वो क्रेडल से ग्रेव तक यूज होता है. क्या आजकल चिप्स भी क्रेडल से ग्रेव तक हर जगह इस्तेमाल होते हैं? आजकल तो
ऐसा तो मुझे
आधार कार्ड चाहिए होता है आपको क्रिमेशन ग्राउंड पे भी.
तो देखिए, ऐसा है कि कोई भी प्रोडक्ट आप देखें, एनी प्रोडक्ट, there will be a semiconductor chip in there. Okay, so there are no products made without electronics today. Everything is electronics. And inside electronics, there will be at least a single chip or multiple chips. If you take a car, you might have hundreds of chips. And that is what you saw last year when your car deliveries got delayed to 6 months, 8 months. Some people even started to wait for a year and a half, which is very historical for India. एक जमाना था जब स्कूटर्स के लिए हम लोग 3-3 साल वेट करते. पर अब देखिए, अब वो सब तो जमाना खत्म हो गया. हमें we have to get to our products much faster, and therefore we just can't be dependent on other countries for something like this. And very critically, the government has taken all the right decisions in the last 6 to 12 months by introducing the new semiconductor policy, creating an India semiconductor mission, and then going after it with a great, funding strategy that they've created.
Let's talk about the semiconductor mission a little later. But where do we import? How much of the semiconductors or chips come from China? Because there are other suppliers also, and that is also a question which is coming from one of our uh, uh, viewers who's watching us. Mr. Saket is asking that question. I'll keep asking the audience questions also simultaneously as we go along. But can you explain what is the pie diagram? Where are we getting most of our chips and the world?
See, actually, suppliers of chips mainly are sitting in Taiwan, South Korea, and China. That's where it's all happening. And whenever you buy a Chinese product, you have a high probability that you're buying a Chinese chip. Okay, except for very high-end products where they don't have the latest chips available. Mostly the entry level, middle level is where the Chinese chips are sitting. And look at the whole situation of CCTV cameras. World is lit up with CCTV cameras from China. 50% of the world depends on CCTV cameras of China. Each of those CCTV cameras has a Chinese chip. So your photographs, your information, your talking, anything you do is going back to China. So it's a very dangerous situation to be in. And this is not something that is sustainable. And South Korea is the next large, Taiwan is the largest in the world in terms of chips. Then comes China, then comes South Korea. So these are the three top suppliers. Lots of chips do come from the US, but they are mainly designed and created in the US, but manufactured in Taiwan or other countries. But now what's happening is that US has realized that they need to have these chips made in the US because they are very concerned that tomorrow, if China does anything to Taiwan, what will happen? And one of the intelligence committee chiefs there in America has clearly stated the next wars will be fought with semiconductors.
Let's see how to create a round table. First, open the Khul Ke app or visit khulke.com. Tap on the round table button at the bottom left. Click on the new button at the top right corner. Select the type of format for your round table. Be creative, give it a title and description. And remember, just like most things in life, keep it brief. Schedule your round table. Choose the type of round table you want. Add the usernames and introduction of the moderator and panelists. Add the categories and tags that best explains your round table. Add the picture because a picture speaks 1,000 words. Invite people and that's it. Your round table has been created. Schedule your first round table on Khul Ke today.
Yes, as some people say, the next wars will be the non-kinetic wars,
Right.
where bombs and bullets and things will not be used, but the cyber warfare would be the key area or domain.
Right.
Now, for an average user or consumer, can he get to know whether his smartphone or his CCTV camera or his car is it leaking data to other countries, be it China, be it Taiwan, or be it Google, or be it Tesla, or whosoever, Facebook? They are all, everybody is pirating data some way or the other, or squirreling data if you want to look at it favorably.
See, a lot of people feel, well, they put in cyber security software, they can stop all this. That's totally incorrect. That is what takes care of software. But what about hardware? In hardware, it's very difficult to figure out unless you're a genius. So I think you'll need technical, very highly technical people to be able to figure out whether you're leaking data from your product at all. And this is something that is, if it's inbuilt into the chip and there is a trapdoor built into the chip, you'll never get to know. So you should assume that something like this is happening all the time. Japan had recently discovered that in one of their cities, huge amount of data was going back to China. And they immediately started working on reducing the imports from there. And interestingly, you will find that last week China stopped usage of Tesla cars in China. Why did they stop Tesla cars in China? Because Tesla cars are supposed to have cameras which can take pictures of Chinese. So it's a very funny situation. As a matter of fact, चोर ही चोर को बातें कर रहा है, बुला रहा है.
जिसको हिंदी में कहते हैं चोर चोर मौसेरे भाई.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. तो इतनी अजीब बातें हो रही हैं आजकल और ये होता है.
लेकिन चौधरी साहब, हिंदुस्तान तो इतना बड़ा देश है, भारत इतना बड़ा देश है, इसमें अगर इतना चीजें लीक हो सकती हैं तो कैसे रोका जाए इसको?
इसको रोकने के लिए सिर्फ एक ही स्ट्रैटेजी हमें अडॉप्ट करनी है. वो हमें इन द नेक्स्ट 4 to 5 years वी हैव टू स्टार्ट मेकिंग मोर एंड मोर सेमीकंडक्टर्स हियर एंड मोर प्रोडक्ट्स हियर. हम चाहे सेमीकंडक्टर्स यहाँ बनाना शुरू कर भी दें, उससे अकेले से फायदा नहीं होगा। हमें इंडियन ब्रांड्स को भी रिवाइव करना पड़ेगा, इंडियन प्रोडक्ट्स को भी लाना पड़ेगा, और इंडियन प्रोडक्ट्स ही जाके सेमीकंडक्टर्स को खरीदेंगे। अगर आप किसी साउथ कोरियन कंपनी को बोलें कि इंडियन चिप खरीदिए, वो नहीं खरीदेंगे, क्योंकि उनके पास अपने सेमीकंडक्टर फैसिलिटीज हैं और उनके 10-10 साल के एग्रीमेंट्स हैं, तो वो तो नहीं खरीदने वाले। इसलिए हमें इंडिया में अपने प्रोडक्ट्स बनाने पड़ेंगे और उनको डिजाइन करके यहीं के कंपोनेंट्स खरीद के हमें सेमीकंडक्टर्स को यूज करना पड़ेगा। इसको जल्दी से हमें शुरू करना चाहिए। इसके ऊपर एक डेफिनेटली एक मिशन मोड काम होना चाहिए। वही हम अपने फाउंडेशन से कर रहे हैं। हमने जो एक फाउंडेशन सेटअप करी है, एपिक फाउंडेशन, उसका मकसद ही यही है कि हम लोगों को एनकरेज करें कि लोग इंडिया में प्रोडक्ट बनाएं और सारी की सारी गवर्नमेंट्स इंडियन प्रोडक्ट्स खरीदें। उसके लिए लॉ है हमारे पास, पर हम उस लॉ को यूज नहीं करते।
Who can be better to explain to us the complicated situation which India has, I must say, gotten itself into through various policy prescriptions of the past than somebody like Dr. Ajai Chowdhry, who's considered the father of hardware in India? And anything he says has to be taken very seriously. He is also an advisor to India's semiconductor mission. Uh, Dr. Chaudhry, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has brought out a new Indian semiconductor mission, and you have been part of it. What is the key thrust, other than that there would be an investment of rupees 76,000 crores, a large sum of money? But let's talk, breaking it, what it means for India.
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो पुराने पॉलिसीज में ये था कि उन पॉलिसीज में अगर आप यहाँ आकर सेटअप करें, उसके बाद आपको फंडिंग मिलती थी। इस बार सबसे बड़ा चेंज तो ये है कि व्हेन यू अनाउंस अ प्रोजेक्ट, you can get up to 50% of what you have announced. Okay. So the first thing that this particular policy will do is to attract at least 3 to 4 silicon semiconductor plants to India. So which is very, very important because we need those kind of plants. Now the good news is that we are going to make middle level product. We are not going to make the most advanced products. We are going to make the middle level product, which is called 28 नैनोमीटर। तो 28 नैनोमीटर है जो मिडिल लेवल है और उसका सबसे बड़ा मार्केट इंडिया में है। तो 28 नैनोमीटर के हम 3 या 4 प्लांट लगेंगे,
जिसको फैब्रिकेशन फैसिलिटी बोलते हैं।
हाँ जी, उसमें सारे वेफर्स वगैरह बनेंगे और उसके साथ एक पैकेजिंग यूनिट्स भी बनेंगे, जहां पर डिजाइन, उसके 3 प्रोसेस होता है। पहले आप डिजाइन करिए, फिर उसको मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करिए और फिर उसके बाद पैकेजिंग करिए। तो पैकेजिंग के तो 1-2 यूनिट्स शुरू होने वाले हैं अगले 3-4 महीने में। जो वेफर्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है वो 3-4 साल लगेंगे अभी। बट इन द मीन टाइम डिजाइन के ऊपर काफी एम्फेसिस है इस पॉलिसी में। तो एक डिजाइन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव स्कीम भी बनाई गई है, जिसमें करीब गवर्नमेंट चाहती है कि एटलीस्ट 100 स्टार्टअप्स बिकम फैबलेस कंपनीज एंड दे देन स्टार्ट क्रिएटिंग डिजाइन्स फॉर इंडिया फॉर द वर्ल्ड। So that is very important, and that is a very new thing that the government has done. So one, you will start seeing silicon happen in 3 to 4 years. But before that, there is another technology which is called compound semiconductors. Compound semiconductors बनते हैं, for example, gallium arsenide से। तो उस तरह के जो plants हैं वो भी 3-4 आएंगे और वो उनके investments बहुत कम होते हैं और वो जल्दी भी सेटअप हो सकते हैं। तो जैसे हमारी पावर की रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, चार्जर्स हैं, इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स के चार्जर्स हैं, एक्सेट्रा, पावर मैनेजमेंट की जितनी रिक्वायरमेंट,
एलईडी बल्ब,
तो उसके लिए कंपाउंड सेमीकंडक्टर बहुत फायदा होगा। एलईडी बल्ब्स इज स्लाइटली डिफरेंट इशू। एलईडी बल्ब्स की रिक्वायरमेंट तो आपका एग्जिस्टिंग सेमीकंडक्टर कॉम्प्लेक्स से भी हो सकता है।
ओके,
हाँ, बिकॉज उनके पास 180 नैनोमीटर है और 180 नैनोमीटर वैसे तो ओल्ड टेक्नोलॉजी है, बट बल्ब्स में तो कोई खास टेक्नोलॉजी है नहीं। उसमें एक चिप इंपोर्ट होता है, वो सारा का सारा चाइना से होता है। उसको हम आराम से रिप्लेस कर सकते हैं और उसका हमने एक प्लान बना के भी गवर्नमेंट के साथ डिस्कस किया है। दे आर लुकिंग एट इट वेरी सीरियसली because that will make sure that 80 crore chips will be designed and manufactured in India, which will be a fantastic thing to announce.
Now, this is the semiconductor complex which is there in Chandigarh, Mohali now. Is that what you're talking about, sir?
जी, उसी की बात कर रहा हूँ मैं.
Ji, ji. And the same facility which got caught fire many decades ago when we were leaders.
Correct.
And there were many conspiracy theories
Ab
how
wo to
it
pata
happened and why it happened and how it put India back and how we are again, जिसको कहते हैं ना, कुंभकर्ण जाग गया है अब.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
कुंभकर्ण जाग गया है तो उसके आगे जो इकोसिस्टम बनना है उसके अंदर ये काम आएगा.
बिल्कुल.
And I should also tell our audience that India also manufactures certain specialized kinds of chips. Now, those are the chips which are manufactured in Defense Research and Development Organization.
Correct.
And those are chips which are used in our strategic systems.
That's right.
So you should please, the audience should be rest assured that your strategic systems are safe and they're not leaking any data to China or Taiwan or to America or to others. Those are designed, made, manufactured and used in our own missile systems, in our own strategic systems. So
But strategic systems में भी एक थोड़ा सा differentiator आप बताइए सबको.
जी जी.
क्योंकि जैसे अगर आप electricity grids है, America considers it strategic. We don't think of it as strategic. If we don't think of it as strategic, then we'll be using products and technologies there which will use Chinese chips. So वो एक danger जरूर है हमारे पास, क्योंकि with the kind of capability China has, they can bring down our whole financial systems and our utility systems overnight. So we should be very much aware that those kind of challenges are there for us.
No, certainly. Many sectors are strategic sectors and we need to worry about that. And one of them is energy. Because we are looking not just for energy security. In the long run, India is looking for energy independence, which is a whole discussion.
वो तो बड़ा भारी discussion है.
It's a very big discussion and it's a very important discussion. People in the audience are asking, how soon can we have a fabrication facility up and running in India other than the semiconductor complex? Also, I'm aware that you have been part of some discussion with Foxconn and with Vedanta.
देखिए, Vedanta and Foxconn have joined up and they have made a major announcement, and Vedanta is planning a very large display manufacturing facility जिससे जो हमारे phones हैं, televisions हैं, उनके पैनल्स यहाँ पर बन सकेंगे. अभी हम पूरा का पूरा उसको इंपोर्ट करते हैं. अगर आप टीवी की एक कॉस्ट देखें तो 80% ऑफ द कॉस्ट इज द पैनल. तो अगर इंडिया में पैनल बनने लगेंगे, और वो मेरा ख्याल 2 साल तक शुरू हो सकता है डिस्प्ले, 2-2.5 साल 3 साल में. और जो सेमीकंडक्टर फैसिलिटी लगाने का प्लान है वेदांता का फॉक्सकॉन के साथ, उसमें 3-4 साल लगेंगे. बट सबसे अच्छा बात यह है कि फॉक्सकॉन के पास बहुत बढ़िया कैपेबिलिटी है. उनकी एक तरह से फॉक्सकॉन यूनिवर्सिटी है जहां पर वो लोगों को ट्रेन भी कर सकते हैं किस तरह से चिप्स बनाए जाए उसके लिए. तो वो बड़ी बढ़िया कैपेबिलिटी वेदांता को मिल जाएगी फॉक्सकॉन को ज्वाइन करने के साथ. और आपको पता है कि कल फॉक्सकॉन के चीफ नरेंद्र मोदी जी से मिल रहे थे और उनको बिल्कुल वेलकम किया गया है. अब ये देखना है कि वो फैसिलिटीज कहाँ लगाते हैं, वो उन्होंने अभी तक डिसीजन नहीं लिए हैं.
Let's see how to edit your profile details. First, open the Khul Ke app or visit khulke.com. Click on Account at the bottom right corner and then tap on Edit Profile. To change your profile picture, click on the Change button. Then, if you select Capture, smile for the camera, or go to the gallery to use a stored photo. To change your display name, go where your display name is shown and change to a name that you feel is right. Below that, you can also update your bio with what you feel defines you, your interests, hobbies, etc. You can specify your gender if you'd like. Go down to edit your date of birth. Select the day, date and year. You can also add your personal or business website link below. And you can add your interest tags below to let others know what you like. Lastly, be sure to click Save and enjoy your newly edited account on Khul Ke.
लेकिन हमारे पास wherewithal policy initiative के अलावा do we have the human resource and the electricity which we can supply? And I believe fabrication facilities require a lot of water. Do we
Clean
have
water and clean power and uninterrupted power. Absolute requirements for a semiconductor facility. You cannot have downtime. So वो एक बहुत important चीज है. वो commitment जो भी state देगा उसको वो commitment पे बिल्कुल इस तरह से देना है कि it cannot fail. Now, whether the Vedanta goes to Maharashtra or goes to Gujarat or UP, wherever they go, the state government will have to ensure that this is taken care of. And therefore, I think they will probably go to large states who are very well, positioned to offer this capability. Or water is super, super critical. तो उसके ऊपर तो कोई चॉइस ही नहीं है. अगर क्लीन वाटर की और लार्ज अमाउंट ऑफ वाटर की कैपेबिलिटी वो कोई भी स्टेट नहीं दे पाएगा तो वहां ये काम हो नहीं सकता.
Sir, let me be the devil's advocate. 75 years into your independence, those are the two most difficult things for citizens: getting clean water and getting assured clean electricity where there are no brownouts. Today, blackouts have become rare, but brownouts are still there.
Yes.
How do we ensure that, sir?
That they will have to provide absolutely clear, direct connection to the plant. There will be nothing in between. They will have to provide that capability. And as far as water is concerned, they will have to position it close to a good, clean flowing river. And that is super important because if you look at what China has done with the Brahmaputra, they have used Brahmaputra for their semiconductor plants. And that's the reason why there has been this 100 साल से चाइना ब्रह्मपुत्र के पीछे पड़ा है. इसी तरह से उन्होंने पाकिस्तान के साथ दोस्ती करी जिससे इंडिया को थोड़ा सा झटका लगा.
There's one question coming from Mr. Abhishek, who is saying, if the cost of manufacturing in India is more than the cost of importing it, in that case, what do we do?
वो नहीं होगा. That is not a problem at all. Because what they will typically do is that this 28 nanometers has been in manufacturing for the last 8-10 years, easily. So when they bring a plant of that kind, for which there is tremendous amount of experience available with global Indians and otherwise, that will not be an issue at all. And therefore, we don't need to worry about the cost of manufacturing at all. And as a matter of fact, if we start to design our own chips, will be cheaper than anywhere else in the world because our cost of design will be lower.
But we live in WTO time, sir. They can dump chips. They can dump very cheap chips. How do you ensure? When the Galwan issue happened, India banned the Chinese apps. Can we, by taking a position, also ban import of Chinese hardware? Because there's something called a preferred supplier scheme.
You see, there are two schemes of the government which the country and the state governments and central government should take advantage of. Very clearly, these schemes exist. First of all, the first scheme is called preferential market access, which means that if you have an Indian product with 20 to 50% of domestic content, they should get preference over any other product. Okay, when the government buys. And government is the largest buyer of electronics in the country. And the number 2 point is, India, after Galwan, introduced something called the border nation policy. So, if a product comes from China and you put border nation specifications in your tender, nobody can buy from China. And that has been put actually in lot of products in the GEM portal of the country. So if you go to a GEM portal and you want to buy a tablet, and that tablet has a Chinese chip, if you use the border nation policy, that tablet cannot be bought by the government. But they still do. They get out of it by making statements, no, ye to theek hai, kuch nahi hai. Why we should follow this? But these things we should be very clear. अगर हमें आत्मनिर्भर बनना है तो हमें इस तरह के स्ट्रॉन्ग एक्शंस लेने पड़ेंगे. अब जैसे देखिए अमेरिका में एक चिप्स एक्ट की बात हो रही है बड़े दिनों से, अभी तक आया नहीं है, आने वाला है. बट ट्रंप ने क्या किया था? ट्रंप ने एक चीज बड़ी क्लियर कर दी थी कि इफ चाइना सेट्स अप अ प्लांट फॉर semiconductors, no American company can supply equipment to them, and Chinese companies cannot use American software for designing chips. That ban is already there. That means that China has to start from scratch. You see, so they have been put into a huge problem because of this.
So we have been positioning ourselves in the right direction, you would say?
Our border nation policy is a very good policy of this government. See, this government has clearly made a statement that we want to be Atmanirbhar. And they're sticking to that. They have created all kinds of support policies for the country. I think what needs to be done is that the bureaucrats of the country, whether it's central government or state government, they should take heed of the policy that the central government has created and follow it thoroughly. If they follow it to the T, then I think we have a great future, because in the semiconductor policy, very clearly it's written that the demand aggregation shall be done by the government to enable the semiconductor plant to be successful. And demand aggregation can happen when the government buys only Indian products.
There's one very recent thing which has been happening globally, which is the post the war between Ukraine and Russia, where the supply chains have been disrupted. And simultaneously, we have also seen the resurgence of COVID in China, and China going into a lockdown when the world has opened up. Do these twin situations which have emerged, do they offer India an opportunity?
Outstanding point you are making, Pallav. This is really where we should take advantage of the situation. We are best placed to do that. Because if you look at India, we can be the second source for everything in the world. Today, if you are sitting in Europe or you're sitting in any part of Africa or Asia, and you want to make an air conditioner, you want to make a computer, you want to make a phone, you just fly to China, meet their design companies, meet their manufacturing companies, place your order, come back to your home country, put a label and start selling. That is the way supply chains have developed over the last 10, 15 years, where China has taken a premium position. We can take the second position there. We can be the second source. And nobody today, after this zero COVID situation of China, is willing to take a risk of betting only on China. They want all a second source. Some people are even saying, and I read this Economist article just last week, which said that some corporates have taken a decision, even if it costs us more, we are going to have a second source. So earlier, everybody looked at the efficient global resourcing. Today, people are saying we need a very clear, reliable source, not some people where we can't depend on them. And nobody wants to depend on China anymore.
So the tag of being the factory of the world needs to be taken away from China and part of the manufacturing come to India. Is that what you would suggest?
Yes. I mean, if we want to be a 5 trillion economy, we need to bring a lot of electronics to India and then export from India in a very big way. We cannot just be a domestically manufacturing country. We have to be hugely into exports. It started to happen in the last 2 to 3 years. As you can see, a lot of phones are being exported today. More and more of that has to happen, but by using Indian components, not just importing everything, putting it all together and exporting. That's the phase one of anything. But phase two, we need to add depth to manufacturing.
Because see, there was a time when there were Indian electronic goods in the market. Now we no longer have those brands, and it seems sad. Maybe the consumer got cheaper goods, but then your turnaround time and the shelf life was so small.
Hmm.
So do we need a broader ecosystem once we have manufacturing, design of chips, manufacturing, but a broader ecosystem along the electronics industry?
Absolutely correct. Today, all imported products, most of them, have a shelf life, have a usable life of 2 to 3 years. You take your phone, you can't even open it. Okay? You take your tablet, you can't even open it. You can't upgrade it. You can't change your battery. You can't do anything. I think that needs to change. We Indians prefer to use our products for 4 to 5 years minimum. We don't like to throw. And this throwaway piece has created a huge e-waste problem globally. We should not be following the West on this. We should be creating products that are repairable. Today, there is no repair policy in this country. So people get stuck when they want to even get their TV repaired. You buy an LCD TV, it costs you 1 lakh. Then suddenly the screen fails and they will tell you कि 60,000 रुपए आप खर्चा कर दीजिए screen के ऊपर. It is ridiculous. It should be repairable, but there is no policy like that in this country.
What is called the right to repair.
Yes, that's correct.
But unfortunately, we don't have that.
That's
Now,
right.
we are coming to the end of this discussion. I have taken more time than I had asked for from you. Dr. Ajay, you're known as the father of hardware in India. So many years later, you're coming back to that old situation, and now I can see that smile and that very bright face of yours, which is looking for a very futuristic India where it will be all Indian made and Indian products. So is this another very exciting phase for you? And not just 50 billion, we could look at a 500 billion industry in times to come.
I think clearly this is a time that I have been waiting for the last 40 odd years. And it's finally happening. So if it happens in my lifetime, it'll be a wonderful thing to see. And I have great admiration for the government today. They've actually created a policy that will make this happen for us. I mean, you just look at it. If we want to be a 5 trillion economy, various states have to be 500 billion, 1 trillion. Okay, if they're not, then the 5 trillion will not happen. And if we want to see largest state in the country, UP, they should be a 1 trillion economy. How can they be 1 trillion? The only way they can be 1 trillion if they do a huge amount of manufacturing and export of technology products from India. That can enable that to happen.
On that very positive note, that India should be heading in this Amrit Kal to becoming self-reliant in semiconductors, chips, and have a full ecosystem around it, not just to supply for India, but to supply for the world. I sincerely wish that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, the computer I'm using right now, the smartphone I'm using, the LED lights which I'm using around me are all made with chips made in India. But that will happen only when consumers want a safe environment around them. So consumers have to be aware, and this is one effort where we are saying our Chinese computer chips safe for India is to make the consumer aware that there are backdoors, trapdoors, and we need to ensure safety. Uh, Such a pleasure speaking to you, Dr. Ajay. I can already see on the chat box people saying this session should not end. Uh, बट समय की मर्यादा होती है
जी.
और आपका भी समय कीमती है. आने वाले टाइम में मेरा तो विचार है कि हमको और भी इस पे डिस्कशन करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि अगर ये 76,000 करोड़ की स्कीम को सक्सीड करना है तो कहीं ना कहीं मेरे जैसे कम्युनिकेटर्स का भी छोटा सा रोल है बताने के लिए लोगों को कि भाई क्या करना चाहिए। और आपसे बातचीत करके बहुत अच्छा लगता है हरदम अजय साहब, और आपको लंबी उम्र दे भगवान। आने वाले टाइम में हम सेमीकंडक्टर्स हिंदुस्तान में बनाएं, चिप्स हिंदुस्तान में बनाएं और एक सेफ एनवायरनमेंट में रहें। और जैसे सेमीकंडक्टर्स में हम आत्मनिर्भर बनने की बात कर रहे हैं, वैसे ही खुल के का प्लेटफॉर्म आत्मनिर्भर बनना चाहता है इन दी डाउनस्ट्रीम सॉफ्टवेयर साइड, बिकॉज योर डेटा इज वेरी प्रेशियस एंड इफ इट गोज ऑन टू servers outside the India, it can be misused. So between Dr. Chowdhury's effort and the effort which has been put through by Khul Ke, I think we should have a secure future, because that is what our generation and the future generation wants. Such a pleasure speaking to you, Dr. Chowdhury.
Thank you.
Always a delight. There's so much learning from you, and I'm
Thank you.
sure the government is listening to you. Now the 1.3 billion Indian population needs to listen to you and understand the kind of quagmire we have got.